You're tuned in to the Get Above the Line podcast, and let me tell you, today's episode is straight fire. My guest today, Cameron Miller from GSP Homes, is a true thought leader in our market, and his insights are invaluable. We're diving deep into the twists and turns of the real estate business, from the heart-tugging stories of sellers to the nifty tricks for off-market sales. Episode 31 is all about the setbacks, the comebacks, and those little victories that only insiders like us truly appreciate. Don't forget, your feedback fuels our journey. Let's roll. Welcome to the Get Above the Line podcast.
Yeah, appreciate it.
My guest today, Cameron Miller. The reason why I invited you here, it seems like every time we have a conversation, we geek out on stuff. Yeah. I appreciate your the amount of time and energy that you've put into your business. So you grew up here?
No, so I'm from Western Kentucky.
Western Kentucky.
So kind of south of Elizabethtown, town called Litchfield.
Okay.
Basically came up here for UK. Did a couple years there. Let's see, I got a bachelor's in psychology and then a master's in clinical social work, actually.
Oh.
So in my beginning career of or my time here in Lexington, I was actually a mental health therapist. So I did therapy specifically in schizophrenia and substance abuse treatment. So total different world now as opposed to then. But that's what got me here.
What drew you to that?
To the mental health field?
Yeah.
Well, I've tried to really ponder that. And without getting like super deep into it, the only thing I can really remember is I remember having a lot of conversations with my mom when I was young. And she, typical thing you would talk to your kid about, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I never had a good answer. I can just remember sitting there talking to her and saying, hey, Mom, I don't know what I want, but I just want to help people.
Yeah.
Which, that's such a cliche phrase now because it's so overused. Right. But I think I walked into college thinking, hey, I don't know what I want to do, but I want to help people. And so for the most part, I was pretty good with just interpersonal skills, soft skills, things like that, and just kind of understanding people. And so to me, it just seemed like the next best step was to be able to help people in that way. And then long story short, eventually the company I worked for, I was really blessed with some good opportunities, got on an executive team right out of my master's program. And they had a private treatment facility here in Lexington. And things were rosy. I was like, wow, this is like the dream for a therapist.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere, they just decided that they were going to close shop. They didn't want to do it anymore. So we got a 30 days notice basically and said, we're sorry, but we wish you the best. And got a lot of gaps that I'm leaving there, but it ended up being the best thing ever because that's what pushed me into real estate, which was primarily investing. So, a lot of people use the term house hacking. So that's kind of how I got started. Was I decided that as I was finishing my master's and had an internship because that's what they require, and I was working a little bit in that schizophrenia realm, and decided that I was going to buy a house, fix it, and sell it to get that ball rolling.
Yeah.
So I always kind of had that side interest. My grandfather was in construction and probably kind of laid the field for that. But yeah, so I had done that, built up a really good nest egg because of that. And so when they did, I guess technically lay me off, I had just bought a brand new house because I was kind of moving to the next one, bought a foreclosure. Yeah. Luckily had that nest egg, and I said, hey, either this works or it doesn't, but I've got the nest egg to try it.
Yeah.
And so, my wife and I talked about it, said, hey, if I can't do something if I don't get traction in the next 90 days, then I'll go get a job.
Yeah.
And she's always had my back. She's always believed that I can do whatever it is.
That's cool.
And so, that's been a huge blessing to just kind of have her box checked of, yeah, let's give it a whirl.
Yeah.
And it worked.
When was that? What year?
So let's see. That would have been, I think, 2017.
Okay.
That was the year that I kind of just fumbled, into it.
Yeah.
And then the right deal got me a little bit of a jump start, made a good little profit on that quickly. And then the dominoes or the snowball, it just kind of grew.
Yeah.
Bought the next house, fixed it, flipped it, next one.
Then where does the real estate license and all that come in?
Yeah. So basically I got up to about 50 rental properties, just going full force, what I just described.
Yeah.
And a whole lot of debt.
Yeah.
And had the opportunity to come across a mentor that was really willing to give me some genuine advice from someone who's lived it. And what it kind of came down to is like, hey, the scale thing's cool, but a lot of debt can hurt.
Yeah.
You know, I'm oversimplifying. But through a lot of conversation with him, I basically said, hey, you're a lot wiser than me,
Yeah.
so I'm going to listen.
Right.
And so sold off almost all of my portfolio. And then through that conversation with him, we basically started a partnership to start flipping houses together. And that's when everything's probably got a little bit more serious, other than just me going hard and fast.
Yeah.
Then it became more of a business. And then about 2 years into that, I said, hey, all we're doing is buying houses, but we're passing on all of these deals.
Right.
Why not go ahead and open a brokerage so that in the situation where it's not a good fit for us to buy the house, we can try to help the seller sell it?
Yeah.
So that's where the real estate the brokering of deals came in.
Yeah.
And so we opened a real estate office, got a sponsoring broker, brought on our W-2 staff that was already in the house flipping business, basically just scaled their operational tasks to include more of selling retail deals as well. Along the way, got an auctioneer's license and a loan origination license just to help my agents really.
Yeah.
And say, hey, you have the full tool belt. Because that's kind of how I approach it, is every tool in the tool belt.
Yeah.
And then whatever the seller needs, hopefully we can pull that tool out.
You know, back in 2007, that was before you started doing it.
Oh, yeah.
That's when I got in the mortgage business in 2000. And then 2007, I mean, I thought I was really cool. 2006, I thought I was really cool. I was doing a lot of like loans that were like, I knew all the loans. I mean, there were so many loans that you didn't have to do anything dishonest because the loans were already there and you could just use them.
They just fit.
But then when 2007 hit, I mean, I lost it all. It was bad. But at that time, people were starting to blend services and it got everybody in trouble. You know, like it was like, and that stayed in the back of my mind because I have a friend, real good friend, one of the guys that brought me into the mortgage business, mentor in the mortgage business. He has been talking about being a loan officer and a real estate agent, you know, for a long time.
Yeah. Which can be a difficult thing to balance.
Right.
No
right.
doubt.
And I've always, like, my thing has always been that that's how I pay for my resources. Like, I have some of the best resources out there when it comes to mortgage, when it comes to title, when it comes, like, and these guys are the guys that support my business. It's almost like just haven't got, I guess I don't have the volume at this point to take that a step further. That would be the next.
The cool thing about that is too, both from a kind of a protect the consumer perspective and from a how do I make that jump? Like, it's not like I went and opened a bank.
Yeah.
Right. The way I've done it is instead of basically adding in a vertical under one roof, I've worked with someone who's really good at the job. Right?
Yeah, right.
So my license is with Stockton, and so I let that be that, and I let GSP Homes be GSP Homes.
Yeah.
And they simply serve each other very well.
Right.
Right. Same thing with the auctioneer's license. You know, I work with Jonathan Knoll over at Knoll Auctioneers, and he's really good at his job. And so I make sure that when we do auctions, it basically, you know, make sure that it goes through him. And, you know, I am the license there so that we're doing everything on the up and up. But really what I've done is that I've acquired licenses to gain very in-depth partnerships to serve my agents.
That's cool.
So it helps a little bit with the liability concern. Yeah. And, you know, the other piece of it, which I think a lot of people will get confused about, is I don't actually have a real estate salesperson license.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's one license I didn't get.
Yeah.
But the reason is the way our business is set up, I just don't need it.
Right.
We have a sponsoring broker, and so everything's been approved through all the legalities that need to have approval.
Yeah.
And I just don't do the tasks that require a license. That's why I have the agents to do that.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, we've got awesome agents that can handle the job, and so anything that is a task or a conversation that needs to be had that a sales license is needed, I let them have it. Usually I tell people I'm their assistant. So, you know, if you ever call and I answer and you're like, hey, is Shiloh there? I'm like, yeah, sorry, this is Cameron, his assistant. What can I do for you?
Yeah.
Because really that's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, I've tried to set it up so that basically I can just serve them in every way possible.
You said my opinion. That's the only thing you can't do as a non-real estate is give your opinion.
Yeah.
So you can't say my opinion.
Yeah.
That's interesting, though. That's interesting. Man, a lot of thoughts about that, you know, that. I mean, as far as So are you wholesaling properties?
No, so we have represented wholesalers because with the new Kentucky law, it's required for a wholesaler to be able to have some type of representation.
Yeah,
Required's a strong word.
it is. They don't have anybody enforcing it, so it doesn't really matter. They could really do more probably than they could before. Now, especially with the lawsuit. I feel like it opened it up even more.
It probably will. But from our perspective, we're doing it on the up and up. And so we do handle it that way. So we don't actually wholesale anything, though.
Yeah.
Our company I think that's probably a common misconception with how we do things because I was an investor first.
Yeah.
And so people's connection to me is typically in that wholesale world.
Right.
But really, if we sign a contract, we're buying it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, if we're actually giving you a cash offer on your home, we're buying it.
Yeah.
Barring that nothing comes up in title or due diligence that scares us away.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, that's the way I considered getting into the wholesale business, but just never really felt great about how complex the operation is.
Yeah.
I could never be on anyone's team.
Right.
If you're the investor, my job is to stretch you for as much as I can.
Right.
Right. I want you to pay as much as you're willing to pay.
Right.
So we're at odds.
Right.
If I'm working with the seller, my job is to make you take as little as you will possibly take.
Right.
So I'm not working with you, and I'm not working with you. It's really hard to create a win-win that way.
Yes. It is. That's a great way to describe it.
And so I didn't like that friction.
I've come across quite a few transactions. Like I've come across, in fact, I'll tell you a story about one time we had a listing. Mm-hmm. Got a listing from a wholesaler out of Arkansas, and it's one of the guys on the team that's always hustling. So I was like, I'll work with this just because of you. I want to see you get paid on it.
Sure.
Call my broker up. My broker says, well, we need to get a letter from the seller that says that they know that this person, because what they're doing at this point is getting a power of attorney signed.
Yeah.
So that the wholesaler has complete control over what happens with the house.
Yep.
So, and it was the first time I had seen that.
It's more popular in the higher populated areas like you're talking about, like
really?
Phoenix.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. But these guys now are branching into our area.
Oh, yeah.
So this guy, he's calling the shots on this listing, and of course they list with a really high percentage. They don't care what we charge. I mean, they're like, whatever. And then it got to the point, it goes to the closing table, and the title attorney actually flip-flopped the buyer and the seller on there so that they could cover up the fee.
Oh, they did them separate.
Yeah, they did them separate, but
disclosures.
they put the seller in the buyer lane and the buyer in the seller lane. If it wouldn't have been a cash deal, it wouldn't have
I see what
closed.
you're saying.
They did it so that the fee that was charged to the wholesaler wasn't shown on the closing statement for the seller,
Yeah.
right?
And probably what's happened there is that the wholesaler never disclosed that they were wholesaling. That's probably
Well, they
what
did because
happened.
we got the actual seller of the house signed a piece of paper that
Saying
said they had to so we could move forward with them.
Oh, okay.
But then, and the broker on the other side of the deal, he's like, I always say he'd probably be one of the best brokers to work for because he goes to war for his people. War, you say something funny, he's going to war. Anyway, I'm not going to say his name though. And he called me up and he was just like joking with me. I just snapped because I thought he was talking about something else. We got into it over the whole thing. And then here's the thing. The seller calls up 4 days later, 5 days later, once he sees it on Zillow and says, that's not what my house sold for. Mm. And, I felt dirty. I felt like I was lying. I've made it there's some principles in my life that I hold true. I'm very, I'm honest. To a fault, I'm honest. I can't imagine what it's like to lie to people and have to keep up with that. I've been around those people in my life where they're
never
always
stops.
trying to figure out what they said so that they can keep up with the lies. Honesty is a very top principle for me. Being honest, that's one thing that doesn't go along with wholesaling.
Yeah,
I haven't
it's
found
hard.
a way.
Hard.
I haven't worked with one that has been they could be on the up and up about their offer, but then when it comes to how the offer is going to be sold, that's where, you said, if they're representing this person, then who's representing this person? If no one's representing this person, no one's representing this person, who are you representing?
That's right.
You represent yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, which is why I said my
Right. And I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you do it that way. But in my mind, like, especially with like how this lawsuit has been going down, and nothing's changed yet.
Yep.
What's going to change? We don't know. Right. Do I think that it's going to help eliminate a bunch of agents that shouldn't have had their license in the first place? Yes.
Probably.
Is it going to raise the income for the top producers? I think it's going
Probably.
to.
And teams.
And I think that in that though, I think about that wholesale model, and I think about opportunities that I've missed and opportunities that I've seized. And it's like, if you pay attention to what one person wants, like you said, and you pay attention to the other person, what they want, then you're able to justify what you did, right? But if you don't put that together, like, that's where it got kind of messy with buyer's agents and listing agents, because this buyer agent is getting paid the same amount as a listing agent because that's the way it's supposed to be, or the standard. And I feel like that, I was already bucking that system. I've been bucking that system for 3 years, right? Yeah. Like, no, you shouldn't get paid as much as I do, right? Because you just started yesterday. Like, you just got your license.
It's the only field where that happens.
It is. They're not negotiating their own pay. Negotiate your own pay, not with me, but with your client.
Yeah.
And I think that that's going to be where the biggest change. But back to the wholesale thing. I think that because I almost feel wrong because I feel like my clients have been not wronged, but just dirty. Like, I feel like the transactions that I've done have been dirty. But
you know what I think contributes to that a lot is that most wholesalers. So you're right. It's hard to find a good wholesale operation that is being 100% honest. It's very difficult.
Yeah, right. Just by the way you described how you have to.
Well, it's so hard.
By its nature.
Even if their intent is to do that,
right?
It's still very difficult,
right,
to actually do it,
right,
and do it in a way that a consumer can digest it,
right?
Because they're still sales teams and they still want to convert, like you or another agent does,
right? So
they're trying to figure out the best way to explain something that's just inherently difficult,
right,
for anyone to align with.
Yeah.
So it is very hard, but I think what we've learned and what you're describing is that there is a space in the marketplace for selling discreetly and getting exactly what you want very quickly. And there will always be a need for that from a consumer perspective.
Convenience, the lack of hassle, the lack of stress,
whether it's true or not, even if it's not true.
Yeah.
If the consumer perceives it to be true, it's true.
Yes. And there's a space. There is a space. And that's the space, like, I think about every day. I think about that because I think about the way commissions are structured. Like, I'm thinking about, okay, what is my value? Like, what is my value in this situation? Somebody said it, like, if you hire an accountant, they should save you at least as much money as their fee.
Sure.
Right?
Proves value.
Right. If you hire a real estate agent, like, I have hundreds and hundreds that I know that I push for an extra 2-3% at the very end just to get my client more, right? And I think about that more every day, but, like, I think about what I do when I represent someone and what an advantage it is, whether it's convenience, time, or money, because some people want the money, right? In that I'm not scared about earning what I make. Is it going to be in the same context as retail sales right now? I don't think it is. Like,
I don't know.
We're talking about kids. Like, I have a 3.5-year-old son. Do I think that by the time he turns 18, that this is going to be a retail sales team is going to be the place for him? I don't know. I know that whatever happens, I'm going to win.
Yeah.
Like, I know whatever changes need to be made, I'm going to need to adapt. But it's like, I'm circling back to that investment stage of yours. And I'm like, this is going to be around forever.
Oh, yeah.
The investment part is going to be around forever.
The houses will always need work.
And the investors will always be there. Like, whenever there's money, there's a deal to be had. Like, when somebody's got money and they've got a formula and they know what they want, well, it just makes it so much easier. Like, it's like, then they don't care what you make. And the seller of the property doesn't care because they get what they want.
Right. And, I'll just be honest with you. Sometimes I think because a lot of people may think that we're wholesaling.
Right.
Because they categorize it as wholesaling because it is off market.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
They struggle to understand how a seller can be happy with that result.
That's crazy.
Because in their mind,
it's not crazy, but I understand what you're saying.
I mean?
Yeah.
In their mind, they're thinking, well, no matter what, the MLS could have got them more. Well,
Right.
Probably. Right. I mean, when we advertise an off-market deal, I mean, we have a part of our contract where we go over, hey, if you put this on the MLS, it's very likely that you're going to end up netting more money.
Right.
That's just true.
Right.
More eyeballs.
Right.
I usually say there's 3 things that sell a house, and that's price, people, and presentation. At the end of the day, the MLS has a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so if you push it through there and syndicate,
Yeah.
you'll probably get more.
Right.
But realtors, and it's not a bad thing because they know it's true, they struggle to say it's not the right choice. They struggle to say, oh, you should sell it off market, because in their mind, they're so stuck on price is the only important factor. Yeah. But there's so many people.
Because that's how they think. That's their perceived value in the transaction.
Yep.
I or we. That's like when I talk to agents that I work with, it's like, do not use the word I, because it's the most obnoxious thing that you hear in a negotiation. Yeah. Like you're negotiating something, you say something to another agent, they're like, well, I don't think that's going to work. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. Who are you?
Yeah.
Like that's not your job.
Yeah.
Your job's to find out if it works for your client.
That's right.
Right? And your job's to position your client to get what they want.
That's right.
So how are you answering the question of what they want before you even talk to them?
That's right.
So I and we, those are always red flags. Those are flags
Yeah.
that say somebody's speaking for the client. But a lot of times what I've learned is like real estate agents think that that's how they show value.
Yes.
They think that that's their value to the transaction is blowing stuff up when they don't even know. House on Waco. The most offers I've ever gotten on a property, and it was probably 5 years ago, 27 offers.
Wow.
27 offers. It was like a 3-2 ranch, a new build on Waco. So the houses around it weren't new. This one was. It, like probably a ball home, had a 2-car garage, nice fenced in backyard with some landscaping. I mean, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. So we were talking about this earlier, multiple offers. And man, I mean, that's my comfort zone. I'm super, like when I get to multiple offers, I mean, I'm working it. I'm in the zone. Things are going to happen. I've got my intentions of what the seller, I know what they want as far as terms, because it's about terms. It's not about price at that point. You know?
Gosh, yeah.
It's about
all the
it's
pricing
about
is so
no
close
inspection. It's about the closing timeline and theirs. It's because the money's already there.
Yeah. It's certainty.
So I always go back to all the agents, like right before the final bell, and I say, okay, here's where we're at with the top offer. This is where we're at. Here's what the seller wants. Here's where we're at. If you want to take this down, this is the number. This is the terms. This is what's going to get you above this offer. I give them all a fair shot. This agent said, and I said, when I was making these calls, I said, it's going to take removing the appraisal contingency. And this agent said to me, I cannot, and it was over $5,000, I cannot advise my client not to get an appraisal. You said, what? This is a once-in-a-lifetime house.
Yeah.
It's 27 offers. There's 27 people that took time out of their day to write an offer. And you can't advise your client, what, over $5,000?
Yeah.
Like, call them up. And she was like 70 years old. I mean, it's like, that's what you come across all the time with them, with agents.
Yeah.
Call them them.
Well, but
I
think it's what you mentioned earlier, though, is, and I think it is hard. A lot of people will not agree with me on this, but I think it's hard to establish a legitimate measure of value as an agent. And so what you default to is things like that.
It's things like that. And making decisions.
That's right. And you can default to, I got them more than they would have got on their own. How do you know that?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. I agree that it's true.
Yeah.
But it's extremely hard to prove.
It is. It is. It is a hard thing to quantify.
Yeah.
So I quantify it with clarity and communication.
Absolutely.
With communication, with expectations, with track record. I mean, I have a process that every agent follows when it comes to listing a property that has about 20 things on a piece of paper that they have to get initialed before the listing presentation.
That's great.
That describes everything that's gone wrong on a transaction and everything that's gone right.
Yeah.
And everything
That's
that makes
great.
us special and everything that makes us, and our promise to the clients. They have to get everything initials because it's a process. It's not somebody's not going and getting creative on a listing appointment.
Right.
Because that's not what people want.
Right.
That's not valuable to
want
somebody.
simple.
They want simple and they want a process and they want to know the person has a track record and they want to know that there's multiple people. There was times when I first started the team where agents were on the team were trying to take so much credit for it that the clients would get upset that they had to talk to several people. And it's like, that's on there. Now I have it framed as, guess what? You get to work with specialists in every department for the price of one agent. Like, I mean, it's just all in how it's presented and it's part of the process. But it's quantifying your value as a real estate agent. When what you said, how can you prove you got more money? But here's the thing. It's a lot of times it's not about the money.
It's really not. It's about what you said.
It's not about the money.
The clarity.
It's not about the
certainty.
It's
control. That's a
Control
big
is a big one.
The confidence.
Confidence.
I think of I think it's Alex Hormozy. I watch a lot of his stuff, but he made a comment one time, or it might have been in a book I read. It's hard to remember, but the best offer that you can give is to give the client exactly what they want and how they want it.
Yeah, that's it.
It's pretty.
Alex Hormozy
That's value.
is like,
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's true value.
it's true value.
Give them exactly what they want, the way they want it.
Right,
That's it.
right.
So that's what we've tried to do, and that's why why we do a lot of off-market deals is because for a lot of people, that's exactly what they want and how they want to do it.
Yeah.
And so that's what we do.
I just had one recently. The lady called in and told me she wanted me to buy her house. And it was on the market.
Uh-huh.
And of course, like I've crossed, like, those are all the trials that I won at Elbar. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I've been in front of my peers and persecuted and fought and won. So I know the rules. So they have this thing, it's called, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's called a seller-initiated consultation or something, where if a listing calls you up and says, I want to talk to you about selling my house, if they sign it, it releases you and you can go talk to them. I learned that very early on because my mentor at my first office I worked at, I said, somebody called me and asked me if I come talk to them about their house. Is that okay? No. She said, no. I mean, this is agents. They don't know the rules and they make them up. Yes, you can. Get the piece of paper signed and you're fine. So anyway, get the piece of paper signed. Now, mind you, I haven't really been in the field for the past couple of years prior to this. But I heard something in her voice. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to come over. It's in for sales. And she had purchased the house less than a year ago. She had put over $100,000 into it. Like stuff like the driveway, the chimney, the fencing, the shed in the back, stuff that doesn't mean anything when it comes to value.
Yeah.
And she overpaid for it, and she didn't have an inspection done. But I didn't know that until an inspection was done on it.
Yeah.
Okay? She bought it, and the agent told her not to do it. Anyway.
Yeah.
She says, why don't you buy the house? But I didn't hear her and I didn't listen. Here, I'm trying to like tell people to listen, right? So I list her house for what she had into it. Mm-hmm. Like the other agent had it prior to me.
Yeah.
So then I had this like come to Jesus talk with her. I'm like, look, because I've learned so much about her and about her health and about what her goals were, through the conversations. Like her thing was being free from the house. She'd already rented an apartment. She wanted to be free from the house so she could take care of her friend that had MS that lived in Florida.
Yeah. It's a lot more important than money.
Yeah. So then I had this conversation with her. I'm like, look, we have to do a substantial price reduction. And then I added up what it would cost because she was talking about moving back into the house. I added all that stuff up, whatever. Anyway, we did that. It didn't sell. Somebody made a lowball offer. She was ready to accept it. I said, hold on a second. Let's get an auctioneer here. I didn't give him an appraisal. And then I got an investor to make an offer. I didn't make the offer because I wanted to be third party on it. And she took $100,000 less. $100,000 less.
Yeah.
And it just, and bought me a fucking fruit basket. Bought me a fruit basket.
I was very thrilled.
Had a fruit basket sent to the fucking office.
Yeah.
For something, like it took me like a month and a half to figure it out.
Like, how in the world would you be in a position mentally to actually send me that fruit basket?
She said her health was more important than money.
There's been so many. I cannot begin to tell you on how many appointments our agents have been on where it's not even comparable how little money mattered and compared to what they were experiencing.
Yeah.
Whether it be losing everything,
Right.
whether it be literal health, whether it be not being able to take care of themselves, so the
Freedom
everything
from
around
the
them is
property.
declining.
Yeah. Everything going
mean,
downhill.
I mean, the mental capacity.
Yeah.
I mean, we went on an appointment not very long ago. I went with the agent on this one because I knew the seller just through coincidence.
Yeah.
And, you know, at the end of the day, they were willing to say, hey, Cameron, can you come take a look at this? I know you're trying to make money. I understand this process. If you buy it versus I list with an agent.
Yeah.
So I took me as a buyer and the agent as the listing agent to
Yeah.
say, let's just talk to her about what every scenario looks like.
Yeah. Right.
Hey, you're going to net probably $30,000 to $50,000 more if you do this little bit of work that
Yep.
you have the money for. And it's going to take a little bit of time. Here's what that looks like. We'll guide you through it. No big deal.
Yeah. Connect you with the
Or,
contractor.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like, no
We'll do
big
it.
deal.
Yeah, right.
We'll GC it for you, basically.
Right.
Or here's the offer that I'll have to make you in order for it to be a profitable venture for me.
Right.
You probably shouldn't take this,
Right.
but I'm going to give it to you because it's what you tell me you want.
Right.
And she took it.
Of course. Not of course, but I mean, right. I mean, it's like,
I mean, she had every option. There
Yeah.
was no secret of which one made more money.
Yeah.
But she was so stressed
yeah.
by the experience. What it was in that scenario was a bad tenant that was taking advantage of her mother who owned the property.
Yeah.
And collectively, the mother's health was not in a great position. And they had been through so much stress for so long,
It's like a
they
freedom.
couldn't imagine dealing
Yeah.
with it anymore.
Yep. Yeah.
She got exactly what she wanted.
It's funny that it's sometimes really hard to see or hear because you get so caught up in your own thoughts of what people
I
are
would
thinking.
do this. I think
Yeah,
you should do that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like you're thinking what you think they're thinking.
Don't
and it's
think for
not-
them.
No.
Don't think for that. Ask good questions.
No. Yeah.
Ask
But
and be sincere.
and that's why I gave you the example of that lady because I seriously like every single day train with the agents. I mean, we have conversations every single day about
Mm-hmm.
asking questions and paying attention to what people say and listening to what they want so we can help them get
Yeah.
it. You know, like we talk about it every single day. And the fact that it took me a month and a half to hear what she said
Yeah.
and then to get a fruit basket for finally
But it
hearing
wasn't that you had bad intentions.
No,
You
my
had all the
intentions
best
were great,
intentions.
but they were my
And
intentions.
it wasn't necessarily wrong.
No, but they were
But it
mine.
wasn't what she wanted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, what I think has been really helpful for me, and this is coming from other people's opinion, not mine, is that where I started my real estate journey as a therapist,
Yeah.
it really changed how I went on appointments when I went to just buy a house.
Yeah.
Because I had no problem saying, hey, I am not a good fit, hearing what you need.
Yeah.
Let's call this agent over here that I think is going to take wonderful care for you.
Yeah.
Let's hook you up. And what it was, though, is I think that I've always kind of been blessed to have that training to say, just listen and ask good questions.
So
Because it's not a natural thing.
I just implemented a new rule in my business, and I want your opinion on it.
Okay.
So over the years, there's been opportunities that have been taken out of my business that I didn't get a piece of. I might have got a commission on it.
Mm-hmm.
And there might have been deals that I shared with investors that I know that I didn't get a piece of it where I should have, right? Like I was happy getting the 3% and the 2% or whatever it was. And I'm just in a different place in my life.
Sure.
Like hitting 500 sales is not my goal anymore. You know, buying homes is my goal.
Yeah.
Buying multifamily properties is my goal, which has always been my goal, but I never really put as much thought into it. So I implemented this thing. So I'm like, how can I stop this from happening? Because more and more my marketing's geared towards people that want to sell their house, right? That want to get an offer. So more and more we get those calls. More and more we get those people asking, you know, what's the different options, right?
Yep.
And so I implemented this rule that says that no off-market offers go out of this office without me signing off on them. You'd be surprised. I mean, you probably wouldn't be surprised on what pushback I got from that when none of these people that gave me pushback have ever brought a deal to the table in the first place.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But what happened was is like this culture was created where people think they're going to come here and get rich off of investment and not off of selling real estate. Like we're a real estate sales company. Yeah. Like how I've dealt with the fact that I lost money last year was 2 years ago. This last year I didn't lose money. The year, it was the only year I've ever lost in my whole life was 2 years ago. Was that we have a machine and it creates opportunities for investment and it creates opportunities for agents to seize their potential, right? Like all the tools are there, all the support's there, all the coaching's there, all the marketing's there, all the reputation's there, everything's there for someone to come thrive, right? Then the other piece of it is that we create more opportunities than anyone in town. Like we're shaking the trees and we're doing marketing at a really high level. So I just drew this line in the sand. I said, I'm not, it's not just that, it's the NAR thing too. But what you said, because that's the way I've always done it. The way I've always done it is I had a third party come make the offer because I feel like there's a piece there that a lot of wholesalers are missing out on, right? Is that the moment that they make the offer, they lose the trust and it's gone forever. And there's no, even though the person was where you saw that and you said, okay, well, we're passing on so many deals, but it's not that you're passing on the deal. It's that there's a better option for them.
Absolutely.
There's a better option for them. And you might as well help them with that option along with this option. But what I've seen is like, from the wholesale perspective, because I've sweet talked a couple wholesalers, or thought I did, into saying, look, there's some extra income here that you're leaving on the table.
Yeah.
So I put a lot of thought into it. And then I'm thinking about my team and my team out making those offers without my knowledge. And a couple of those deals might have worked out, but what happened to all the other ones?
Yeah.
Like my company email, my company letterhead, my reputation, I'm going to say my, and not us, because I've put my blood, sweat, and tears into this thing for 15 years, like I'm taking that back. Taking that back.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's been a big deal because
I can understand that.
It's like,
I mean, I had a conversation with an agent today in the scenario where it's potential that the best option for the client is for me to buy it. I said, whatever it is, the final conversation needs to be me and you nodding our head together.
Yeah.
So I'm involved in all of those sign-offs because at the end of the day, if there's an offer made, I don't want it to be a frivolent offer. Like it needs to be legitimate.
Right.
And the only way that I know it's legitimate is because I'm the guy writing the check.
But your business is like structured the opposite of mine almost in that sense. Because I wasn't in that position. I was bringing that stuff to investors. Well, then, the investors in my world all of a sudden start seeing that. And then they're talking to other agents in my world. And deals are happening, but they're not happening the way I want them to happen. Right. But I think that that's the important key is that you are the person that does that.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah.
But what's maybe it's a thought for you is so it's kind of what you've described in one way is similar to what we've designed as our just off-marketing agreement.
Yeah.
So we have an agreement that's already been approved by everyone that it needs to be approved by. That basically says, hey, this person is specifically electing not to go on the MLS.
Yeah.
And they're giving us permission to market this off of the MLS.
Yeah.
And the intention is to bring cash offers and other regular offers too.
Yeah.
But the emphasis for that seller is typically they want a cash offer that's probably just a little bit higher than what I'm willing to go.
Yeah.
And so all we do is we say, okay, Mr. Seller, if that's what you want, we'll put our best foot forward and try to bring it to you.
Yeah.
Here's the process. We're going to tack a buyer's premium onto the process because that's how we have to justify our team and resources going to bring you these leads because, it's a lot harder to sell houses off market than it is using the MLS sometimes.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the ability to disseminate tons and tons of information to tons and tons of eyeballs.
Right.
It's almost like old school sales.
Yeah.
Like you got to be relational. You got to be talking to people.
Yeah.
You got to be moving this stuff in a way that people can bring you a buyer without it being on any normal source that they're used to seeing.
Yeah.
And so what you're describing, though, creates an opportunity for us to say, hey, we're going to go ahead and agree that this is the effort we're going to make, but the end result is to bring all these other investors' cash offers in.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, kind of that multiple offer situation, we choose the best one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's a similar, that offer, that product that we've created
Yeah.
is a similar solution to what you're proposing
Right.
when you did have a lot of other investors that you were mainly
Yeah.
pointing to. And it's kind of like this. Your right of first refusal anchors it. It
Right.
anchors the conversation.
Right.
And so, we may say something like, hey, here's what you'd get if you listed. Here's what we think if it's an auction. Here's this. I'm going to guess that most other investors are going to offer somewhere around $100,000 for a house like this.
Yep.
And that's just in our experience. But if you want to, we can go ahead and get approval from our team to get us a hard number. What were you hoping for? And, what you've done there is you've used your offer to anchor the conversation.
Yeah. Right.
Because you need to make a little bit of a conservative offer because you've never put your eyes on it.
Right.
Right? Because the worst thing is to go have a really happy seller and then go price drop them after you gave them their word.
Trust me, I know.
So you have to be a little bit more conservative. But your conservative anchor, if they go, no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I'd like to get more offers.
Yeah.
Then what you've done is without you making the offer, you've made the offer.
Yeah. Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
So there may be some middle ground there
That's
in your
good.
sales process to leverage. I don't know.
We've recently added in, if you had the opportunity to sell your property off market, even if it made financial sense, would you be open to looking at an offer? And that's totally changed the dynamic
a great phrase.
of our calls, right? Like
100%. You get way more appointments that way, don't you?
yeah. And the thing is that it opens up people's mind. Instead of it being
Oh, wait. I can do that?
Instead of it being, instead of us calling and asking them for something, like, hey, what are your real estate needs in the next 12 months? Instead of it being an open-ended question like that, it ends up being this, I would still call it open-ended, but at the same time, it opens up their brain.
Oh, 100%.
Like in a totally different way.
But what
so
you've
they're
done,
like, well, I'm not ready yet. Oh,
Yeah.
you're not ready yet. Okay, cool.
no big deal.
Okay,
We'll call
that's
you
perfect.
in a month, 3
Yeah.
months.
Yeah. So that's really opened up a lot for us. And
But what you're doing is you've created an offer that
Yeah.
gives people what they want the way they want it.
yeah, and it's been helpful. But we've been compiling those. But then the other part is like what I'm trying to share with agents, just like Eli that walked in here. Like, I'm got 2 apartment complex deals that are happening. One just happened yesterday, and one's happening next week. I've made more money working with him than any other person. But I met him on a cold call. I cold called him. And he immediately attached to me saying, wait a minute, hold on a second. Who is this guy? Nobody else
Yeah.
is doing this.
Yeah.
And him and I mean, he's one of my best friends, right?
Yep.
I try to share that with agents, like, all that stress you go through with the people that don't want you to call them, all of a sudden you come across someone that appreciates
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Well,
you don't
there's a
know,
lot
too,
more
what
people
they're-
out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot more people, because another thing that I heard today was like people that say they got out of the market because they couldn't find the house. Like, that's a ding, 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 ding.
No doubt.
You got out because you couldn't find it. Well, what was it?
Yeah.
Now it's like, well, did you have an agent making phone calls you look like I'm doing for my clients?
That's right.
Right?
Yep.
And it just totally changes the dynamic, because I believe that that's another piece of our value. I say our value for a buyer. I've had a value proposition for buyers for the past 7 years, 8 years. And it is that once we figure out what you want, we'll knock on doors and we'll make
We'll
phone
find
calls
it
until
on
we
or
find
off
it.
market. That's right.
We've been doing that for years.
Yep.
And
That's what we try to tell agents.
Right.
It's amazing though, and I don't want to point as if all agents are silly or why don't you do this? Oh, that's dumb. That's not what I'm suggesting.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, for some reason, I don't communicate clearly enough for them to understand why that's such a value. So our team drumming up these opportunities for an agent,
Yeah.
when they're not having to do all the legwork that we have to drum those opportunities up.
Right.
You should all want to be on this list.
Yeah, right.
Because if your clients have seen everything on the market,
Yeah.
and you have the ultimate ability to pull a value out to
Yes.
say, hey, you can't get this anywhere else.
Yeah, right.
It's not on Zillow. There's not a sign in the yard. You can't just Google it.
I love it.
Aunt Jessie
It
don't
is.
have a sister who happens to know about the neighbor's house,
Yeah.
and it's right here for you.
Yeah.
And here's what'll blow your mind, Bob. And I understand, agents get so much junk sent to them that it's hard to sift through.
Yeah.
But I want you to know that I made it an intention because I don't want to just tell people we can sell their houses off market and not perform.
Yeah, right.
So I've been extremely intentional about trying to work with more agents relationally, like the old school sales.
Yeah.
And out of the 4,000 agents, I got every single agent's contact information from Bluegrass Realtors.
Yeah.
And I have reached out to every single agent on that list personally.
Yeah.
Of 4,200 have opted in.
Really? It's interesting.
Isn't that interesting? And most of them won't even talk.
I've got this.
Probably 90% of them.
So I've been sending emails. I don't know if you get my emails.
Yeah.
But what boggles my mind is if I'm an idiot, right? Or if I'm annoying, or if I'm whatever it is, don't you want to see what's going on?
A little curious, right?
Like, don't you want to know what's happening on the front lines of the real estate war? Like, it's me. Like, I'm the one in the trenches. Like, while you're sitting at home eating potato chips, I'm the one out doing the thing, right? Like, and I'm sharing with you my experiences. And when I take it personal. The unsubscribe's personal. They bother me. I'm like, why the fuck are you unsubscribing?
What do you mean you didn't want to hear that? Come on.
Like, tell me that I'm an idiot. Give me some feedback. Don't just hit the unsubscribe button and say it's spammy.
Yeah.
Like, what's spammy about it?
Yeah.
Like me pouring out my heart and soul.
I get it though, but it's the same theory, right?
It is.
And I think what it is though is, and I'm gonna, I've always had a leadership style that says everything's my fault.
Yeah, right.
That's just to a fault. I do that. My wife fusses at me sometimes because it's a heavy burden.
Yeah.
And so I look at that and I go, wow, what have I not done to communicate how this is worth your time?
Yeah.
Because if my conversion rate to 4,000 people whose living is to bring houses to people, if I can't get 50% of them to want free opportunities, what am I doing wrong?
I think it might be the asterisks. The asterisks might have something to do with it too, because you start off with 2 asterisks.
Tell me more.
Your text.
No, you're saying once you're opted in.
Oh.
Yeah, so this is before that process.
Oh, I don't know what it is.
See, you were lucky enough where we already had a relationship.
You
didn't get my spam call. I just said, hey, I'm opting you in. But these are people who I'm actually sending an individual text to.
Yeah.
And now, to be fair, I've been a little lazy and texted more than I've called. That's lazy, but it's effective. So I can understand that too. There's a lot of people that would just click a text, roll on, and then it's over.
Yeah.
But
I think about spam a lot, man.
Well, all those folks that didn't answer me, they're probably going to get a call. So after I finish texting these 4,000,
well, why don't you? I got 8,000 credits on Sly Broadcast. I chickened out.
Drop it.
Just drop it. Just drop it. I got 8,000. They just sent me a reminder. It's been 3 or 4 years since I had Sly Broadcast, or I used it. We dropped a message to 40502. And I've never gotten. I've made thousands and thousands of cold calls. It's sent hundreds of thousands of emails. And I've never gotten such a negative response in my entire life for anything that I've ever done.
I've never done it, but I've been at companies that have done it.
Yeah.
And they've had the same story.
Oh, it's like the hate mail. Everybody gets pissed.
Yeah.
But that's a big thing, the spam, man. Spam filters.
Well, agents are busy. And they're not just busy, but they're like chaotic busy. Go do this and then this and then this and then this.
I think it's like, I think about the calls that I get because I started my business. One of the number one principles of my business from day one is that I answer my phone.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now I don't have to anymore because it's 90% spam.
That's true.
Right? Like, but I used to win deals all the time. I still do it.
Yeah.
And I critique the salespeople, I'm like, whoa, bro. The ones that start off with lies are the ones that piss me off the most. The ones that say, hey, I spoke with you.
No, you didn't.
No, you didn't. Why are you starting with
a lie? Just tell me your cold call. Let's roll on.
So I think about those calls, and I think about some people that are good, and I think about offers, and I think about what's important to me, and I think about something else somebody said. How does it go? It's like about recognition, right? Like, really, that's at the end of the day, they want to get paid, right? But you hit on it when you were talking about what a benefit it would be to their clients. And like the recognition that they would get. Like that's like the place into their, like, what do they say? Babies cry for it, men die for it, right? Like, but it's more than that. Like, it's like how do you get past the first sentence and get someone to say that seems valuable to me?
Yeah.
Without them thinking that you're charging them a 25% referral fee.
That's right.
Or charging something else. Or
That's certainly what they're thinking. What's it going to cost me?
100.
Yeah.
Because every time you open your mind to it, you open your mind up to it, and all of a sudden they come with some big $5,000 fee or something. You're like, wait a minute.
$2,500 startup, $500 a month.
Yeah. Like, wait a minute. That's not how this opened up.
Yeah.
And I asked about that, and you didn't say anything.
No, there's been people, because I totally get that, because I get those calls too as a business owner. Hey, do this marketing, yada, yada. But there's been so many people that have said the first thing, what's it going to cost me?
Yeah.
And, I'll kind of jokingly be like, not a penny. And immediately they're like, I can't compute. And so,
it shuts you down.
Yeah.
Because then there's the absence of value. Like, without a price.
What do you mean?
Then it's
value?
free.
Yeah. So
then
those
it's free, and then
but at least they responded, and I can say, can I call you tomorrow at 9:00?
Yeah.
And those have been great. If people just, even any response, we can hop on the phone and they're like, you know what? And what's funny is how many brokers I've had respond to me something along the lines of, you can't do this. This is illegal. And I'm like, okay. And I had one guy specifically ask me for like our brokerage license number and my company name, all the questions to report, right?
That shit.
And so I'm like, hey, it sounds like I've upset you. Is there any way we could just hop on the phone and I can explain our position on this? He actually said yes, which doesn't happen often.
Yeah.
But within 5 minutes, they're like, oh, yeah, you're doing it right. I'm like, yeah, dude, call Bluegrass
It's the initial
Realtors.
reaction. It's the initial reaction of fear. There's fear that there's going to be change, or they're scared that they're not doing something. So then it automatically turns into the rules. It automatically goes straight to you're breaking the rules. And usually then people aren't open to see that they're not. And really those people don't deserve the time that it takes to describe it. And I think maybe that's where I get into trouble.
Well, and those are brokers too. Theoretically, those are people who have obtained a level of training that they are the ones you ask about what legalities are. But the reality is that's just, you can't know everything.
People are.
But so that's been kind of like we joke about it, and
I've been thinking about that too since we talked about it the other day. It's just like, how do you get in? How do you get in? How do you show people that it's going to benefit them and their clients are going to appreciate them for having an opportunity that they didn't know about?
Yeah.
Like, you're not able to drum up a listing that's off market. So what else are you doing for your client?
That's right. Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, because here's a topic we had this week. I use this phrase old school a lot because this off-market sales technique is kind of just the old school way of sales pre-internet.
Yeah.
What was the MLS originally? Well, it was a bunch of people who got together and said, this person over here.
Before the MLS was a book.
Yeah. But even before that, it was scratch pads and people getting together and saying, hey, I got a house that so-and-so wants to sell. Does anybody have a buyer in the room?
Which to a certain extent is the way the commercial markets work still.
Yeah. They just happen to have the internet to have a landing page to point to.
Yeah.
But, we've joked around and said, hey, well, what if we just brought that back? Yeah. So I'd be curious to know what you think. Like, what if we had an open door policy every Friday that GSP Homes hosts this deal room where off-market opportunities are here and we all talk about them. We're all open and honest, and either you show up or you don't. You can hop into Zoom or you can hop in person. And we just talk about whatever deals are off-market together that hopefully you have a buyer for.
For me, that would make me crazy. Like, I would like something I can fast forward or turn to like 2 times the speed. Because I'm not really searching for properties, really. Like, if I'm searching for a property, I'm calling a neighborhood or I'm sending a mailer or I'm bombarding people in my own way.
Well, and you're opted in, so you already know my opportunities.
But the display of them, I think, is the important part.
Yeah.
I think
we're working on that.
I think the condensing it and making it so that people know that it's an opportunity off the bat.
And how do you?
But even an opportunity is like, sometimes it's an opportunity just to get a property in a neighborhood.
Yeah.
In a specific neighborhood.
Yeah.
If there's nothing on the market.
I'd say that happens a lot.
And that's why I think the display of the days on market, the average days on market in that neighborhood, the average list to sell price in that neighborhood, that's my friend Seamus McCreen in Louisville that does that. When he works with buyers, part of his buyer presentation is like, he takes a CMA, a one-line CMA, and says, okay, just so I can be clear with what you're getting yourself into. So the average days on market is 1. And the average list to sell price is 105.
This is what you're up against.
This is what you're up against, and just know we're going to war. We're going in here. We're going to fight, and you understand this. That's how you're going to win. And I don't think many agents take that perspective. And I think maybe like that perspective with those houses in those neighborhoods, that might add more value to
Oh,
them.
definitely.
You know, like I don't know how you do it.
Well, a lot of agents just don't have. I think they've just not gotten to a point in their career where they can spend a lot of time building. Like that gentleman probably has a lot of thought and time into that buyer's presentation.
Yeah, he's
And that's where I think teams become such a valuable asset.
Well, I also think that here's the other thing that this is another piece that might connect with this too. Is my wife. She's sold. It's probably a record for a new agent. I mean, she has been in the real estate business for 20 years. She's had her license for a year. But she's sold a lot. I don't even know. I should know how many houses she sold. It's been a lot. But I heard her with a client, and she's going from Cynthiana to Frankfurt with the same client. And I'm like, because my number one thing about finding properties for a buyer, and this happens before that list means anything to me, is like when I tell a buyer how we're going to find the property, like, we're not going to find a property. We're going to eliminate all the properties. We're going to eliminate the prices that don't fit into your budget. We're going to eliminate the neighborhoods. We're going to eliminate the cities for sure, like counties.
Right.
You're not going to be going to 2 different counties.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which happens all the time. Because they're looking for a house and they're
more
like,
so.
yeah.
More so now because of the availability of properties.
Yeah.
They're like looking in a price range. They're moving, but then
You said you wanted Lexington, but you're sending me to Lawrenceburg.
and they haven't even narrowed down that they're going to move to Kentucky yet, which is really a problem.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to finding people homes and when it comes to making that list important. So we're eliminating all this stuff. This is where I've worked with the buyers and I've been the most value to a buyer, right? Is I help them through that elimination process because there's probably only one neighborhood or 2 neighborhoods that's going to have that house in that price range and that style in that school district or whatever it is they're looking for.
That perfect thing.
You get all those things that they want. Well, guess what?
Everybody else wants it too?
Everybody else wants it too, and that property's not on the market.
Yeah.
But when I get to this place with you, and we know that there's a possibility of a house hitting the market in that area, or that's the area that you are zoned in and want to be in, it's been a shortage of properties in Lexington for a long time. Not like this, but there's always been.
Yeah.
In the hot neighborhoods, you're not getting a property unless you're fighting for
For
it.
years.
Right. So to the list is like, for people to understand what's valuable to their clients, they need to understand it. So maybe there's a sense of like, they're lost in the fact, because even my
Which
wife,
I think is true.
even my wife, because of the price range, there was 180 was the price range, and it had to be it had to be able to go FHA or USDA or something. There was some other caveat to it, right? Because what was I going to say to her? Well, because I would never drive from Cynthiana to Frankfurt with a client in the same day, ever. I've never done it in my life. I did it maybe my first couple months.
Sure.
But that's like a number one thing of figuring out what people want.
Yeah.
But if you don't know what they want, then the list isn't valuable.
Right. That makes sense.
So maybe it's like a step before that or something.
I think it is. I think it's really an education thing.
Yeah.
Which, the purpose of that kind of, for lack of a better term, that deal room comment is really to just get people in the room together.
Yeah.
Because what we've learned is if you send a bunch of emails with videos, or if you send a bunch of text with check out this YouTube video or whatever, 1, they're probably not doing it.
Yeah.
And 2, you don't know if they did or didn't, even if they said they did or didn't.
Well,
So
unless you use
if you can get in the room,
Soapbox or Wistia.
there's tools for sure.
Yeah.
But the adoption rate of that, it's going to be very difficult.
Yeah.
But if you can get in the room,
Right.
no different than probably how me and you met.
Yeah.
We may have had some crosstalk here and there.
Yeah.
And probably didn't think nothing of it. It was just another real estate conversation.
Right.
And then once we actually got in the same room, it was like, oh, okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
let's talk.
Yeah.
So my thought is if we can just find a way to get more people in the room
Well, that
are opted in.
the highest open rate I've ever had on an email to agents was the one
The NAR
84%.
which I went to.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which I was not, I didn't have anything. Like, all I had was that I'm confident that I'm going to win.
Yeah.
And I'm confident that everything's going to be okay and that
Yeah.
you're freaking out for nothing and keep working. That's really all I had.
But you opened the space for conversation.
for
and
conversation,
people appreciated
and people
it.
they did. I got more thank yous off of that than I've gotten off of
Yeah.
a lot of things that I've done.
Even if they just needed to vent about it a little bit because they're frustrated about what they do or don't think about it.
Right. And I see those headlines.
I just
now.
want to get more people in the room like that.
Yeah.
You know, what you created in that Zoom was just more people in the room.
Yeah. It was cool.
So that's what I'm trying to do is say,
Yeah.
hey, is that valuable? I don't know. Agents, the one thing I've learned about agents too is that it's really hard to fit things in their schedule in a consistent manner.
yeah.
So
It's amazing. It's
I don't know.
amazing
We'll
to me.
see. That's one of our problems we're working on solving because we don't have a shortage of opportunities.
Yeah.
We have contracts on a consistent basis that have off-market opportunities to agents. The question is how can I set up the buyer's agent best to capture those opportunities?
Yeah.
Because just like I try to be a servant leader to my team,
Right.
I need to look at it as though that is my position for buyer's agents too.
Yeah.
Now, at the end of the day, we represent the seller. However, there's no reason that I should make your job harder as a buyer's agent.
Right.
It is in my seller's best interest to remove as much friction as possible to the buyer's agent so that their job is very easy to bring the best offer they can bring.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to figure out.
That's a
It's a ongoing challenge. So
there's some good ones out there. Some.
yeah,
There's some some of the things that I've seen it's a tough one.
it's hard
It's
to
a
know
tough
what
one.
actually moves the needle
Yeah.
because there's a lot of noise and there's a lot of cool things.
a lot of noise, and I think the challenge. There's a broker, a Remax broker. He's very vocal on Facebook. Tom Cox. I don't know if I say his name. Anyway, he argues with people about all these things. He's very strongly opinionated about Remax. But one of the things he always attaches, or not always, but he attaches to a lot, is first income. Like the percentage of first income earners that are in the real estate business, which is really interesting.
Okay.
It's a very low percentage, like the
believe that.
first income in a household. Where is I don't see it any other way. But if you think about it, how many people are in it, and they might be the third income in the family.
Sure.
Not even close to the first,
Right.
right? And then you think about that, and then you think about, well, one is that they may say that their motivation is to make money, but they don't need to.
Yeah, when there's not an urgency,
Right.
that's a very different position.
So then it's not about money, okay? So then what is it about? Is it about helping people? Is it about community? Because I feel like that's a big piece of it is the community,
which
like-
is tough in real estate in general.
which is something that I have never been good at, is being part of the real estate community. Like
a lot of agents don't play well together. They just don't, for whatever reason. And I would
So-
love to try to help that problem, but it's a big problem to solve.
So figuring out, like you said, what moves the needle. It's not what you think. It's not. We were talking
Stop
about
thinking
that.
for 'em.
We were talking about that, like buyers, right? Like with the off market properties or whatever.
Don't think for 'em.
We're thinking for them,
Yeah.
and it's been like
It's hard to figure out because at the end of the day too is if you can't get feedback. So, I'm taking the approach currently and you probably got one of those texts. I know you did because you called me of, hey, what can we do different? What can we do better?
yeah, right.
It's a genuine question.
Right.
I actually really mean it.
I thought
But-
you personally sent it to me. It was good. It was good.
Yeah.
It was good. And I was like, I try to ask that of people a lot, and I very rarely get a response.
Well, and there was a handful of people that gave real feedback, but it was extremely helpful. You know why? Because I didn't have to think for them.
right.
Like,
Right.
simple as that. Like, I genuinely want your feedback because
Yeah.
of what I said earlier. I'm trying to remove friction.
Yeah.
You don't know it,
Right.
but I'm trying to make your job better.
Yeah.
But I need your feedback because otherwise I have to think for you. Because I've made that mistake a lot.
It's an easy mistake to make.
Yeah, I've made that mistake
it's
a
an
lot.
easy mistake
And
to
every
make.
time it costs me money.
Oh, lots. Oh, maybe not lots, but it has for me.
It's cost me a lot of money thinking for agents.
Thinking for anyone, really. I mean, agents especially. Anyway, man, we could talk all day. I know you got something you got to get to, and
Little girls dance.
yeah, I appreciate it. Congratulations on the new baby, and
Thank you very much.
I'm sure people will find this valuable, and Appreciate you coming in, man.
All right, good deal. Till next time.
Yeah.